What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Two Brothers, Same Mother. Of course, we got Sheik. AJ is there on the other side. Say what's up or something.
Get the peace out, nigga. Get the peace out.
Yeah, well, I didn't have that on gallery view, so nobody would have saw you.
All right, what's up? What's up?
So, man, listen, it is a beautiful day outside. Spring's here. And a lot of people are saying it's been a beautiful offseason for the Eagles so far, both nationally and locally, reporters and fans. And we're going to talk about some of the latest moves and if that feeling is correct, because that seems a little odd. But there's also in our 5-pack of questions, we're talk about an anniversary of something, and it's something that it was catty cornered to what is on your shirt, my friend. Explain what that is.
Oh, this is the Spectrum, baby. This is where everything happened, man. This is where WWF used to come. The first home of the Sixers and the Flyers. It was the Spectrum was the Spectrum, man. It's just like I said, this is where, like, I don't know if you guys watched Prism. Prism broadcasted live from the Philadelphia Spectrum. So kind of
It's also big for things like
concept.
escapades, monster truck races. A lot
Yes,
of Joe Frazier's first fights that were, a step
yes,
up were at the Spectrum as well. So a lot of history there with the Spectrum, not to mention the various concerts and things like that. Um,
absolutely.
I never got a chance to go in there, but it was just because of the fact by the time I was really old enough to be kind of doing stuff like that, Sixers and Flyers were already playing in what was known as the First Union Center, which I thought was perfect for Philly, the FU Center.
Yeah.
But yeah, Spectrum got a lot of history, man. It's also the home of Fo Fo Fo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let's get into it. We're going to start. Actually, there's been two interesting signings by one Howie Roseman. We're going to break them down. One, which was the lesser signing, was the re-signing of one Jordan Howard. I thought he was a key piece 2 years ago. Good for Miles Sanders, who was a rookie at the time, to take shoulder the load a little bit. Didn't do much in Miami. Came back here and really didn't do anything either. How do you feel about Jordan Howard being back as a backup?
I'm cool with it. I was excited last year when he came back. He could get you a good, 5 to 7 carries a game this spell. Um, Miles, and God forbid if Miles goes down for a game or two, he's a decent back to have. You know what I'm saying? To have back there and stuff like that. So, but just as him as a player, I'm cool with it. He's a backup. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like
I,
the Joe Flacco thing. Living here in Maryland, everybody, oh, Flacco's your guy. Y'all got Flacco. He's a backup. Like,
I don't think I've ever heard of a fan base dislike a guy that was a Super Bowl MVP and won a Super Bowl like Baltimore hates Joe Flacco for some odd reason.
what it reminds me of is the closest thing I ever seen how the Philly fans with McNabb. Granted, I know Flacco 1-1, but what I'm saying is that ha it's almost 50-50. You got the Philly fans that love McNabb, like myself and you, and then you got the other half that hated McNabb, right? Same thing with Flacco
Yeah, there's no in
in
between
Baltimore.
with McNabb.
Y'all act like he was a like, and I'm not saying all ball. I'm saying like it's almost split down the middle. Like it's crazy.
Right, and before we go into where it sounds like we're trashing, Baltimore fans. Obviously, Philly fans have their own problems,
Yeah,
and I'm going to gotta bring it home here because one of the reasons why I like the Jordan Howard signing, beyond the fact he's a lot younger than people think. I think he's only like in his 5th year, but it was also why I like the Joe Flacco signing. People made a big deal about Joe Flacco coming in and kind of saying, I'm not here necessarily to be a mentor. Joe Flacco's a competitor. No one who still thinks they got a little gas in their tank wants
right.
to be known as a mentor.
Yeah. Real quick. Yeah, I agree with you. I think like with Jordan Howard, people don't realize Jordan Howard's only 25 years old, even though 5th year, but he's like 25. And then with Flacco, who else do you want mentoring a young quarterback, even though he's not technically mentoring, but you get what I'm saying? Pushing, we'll use that term, pushing the youngster. There's somebody that's been there, done that, and has won it at every level. So
And both Howard and Flacco have a good reputation of being a good guy in a room where you're competitive, but you don't have those sour grapes. Now with quarterbacks, whether it would have been Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett, we've been cool with that. Even Alex Smith.
yeah,
I don't know about Tyrod. I know Brissett and Alex Smith both feel like they would like that one more shot to be a starter. I feel the same way. Like, I'm so glad we didn't get LaShawn McCoy. We didn't get Le'Veon Bell. We didn't spend money on James Conner because Miles Sanders, deserves the opportunity to be a premier running back in this league. And
absolutely.
you bring in Jordan Howard, it's, hey, if Miles goes down for a few games, Jordan can carry the load. He can do a few things, but there's not a doubt who the starter is.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely.
and I think that's what's really, really decent. But speaking of starters, and this is one of those I'll use, even though he's a defensive player, I'll use your term. The fantasy football guys love it per se. It's a stat thing to me, and that was the signing of Anthony Harris, who linebacker. I think he has great potential, but my comp to him is like Ike Reese. And when I say that, special teams player his whole career, got a chance to start because one of the Vikings linebackers, he was Anthony Barr, was hurt. Did
Mhm.
have over 100 tackles. Had a couple forced fumbles, had a few sacks. Nate Gary also had over 100 tackles too.
The the Vikings linebacker core is far more better even without him, even without what you call it,
Anthony
dude,
Harris,
just
yeah.
Anthony Barr. Anthony
Anthony
Barr,
Barr, okay.
yeah, yeah, even without Anthony Barr, but to lead, not only did he have 100 over, he led the team in tackles, he led the team in forced fumbles, he led the team in tackles for loss, and not to mention he also had 3 interceptions.
Right. And here's the thing. He could be an amazing signing. I'm not poo-pooing the guy. Um,
Right, right.
where and it's not even a concern. My cautious optimism comes in with twofold. One, the reaction from local media, not so much national media, and of course the fan base, is that, we signed a premier linebacker, which we did
No,
not.
we didn't.
Like, so the guy was a special teamer his whole career until last year. Now, last year could have been his breakout year. How we signed him to a 1-year deal kind of leads me to believe that they're not sold on him either. Because if they were sold on him, you sign him to a 2 or 3-year deal, lock him in. Because if he has a monster year this year, he's gonna want way more money.
That's a Howieism though. And even if you think about the Super Bowl year, look how many of those players that year we Alshon Jeffrey was a 1-year deal until the all season. And I'm not putting him in that stratosphere of Alshon, but
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying is that's a Howieism. He is
Well,
notorious for that one
I
year, hey, prove it type deal. You start to actually show like, yo, you could ball. All right, now we'll talk about the 2, 3 year deal.
so I want you to comment on this though, because what has been said by several pundits is that the reason why they signed him, beyond the fact that, remember, Gannon, our defensive coordinator, comes from Minnesota.
Mhm.
Obviously, he coached with the Colts too. That's where we got it from.
Yeah.
But he has relationships with some of these players, the up-and-coming players, so he could be a great fit. But the thought is that the Eagles did this because Howie is so weak on judging linebackers, it gets him off the hook of drafting a linebacker. Do you
Yeah.
feel that means that we're out on Michael Parsons, we're out on a second round linebacker?
I mean, I think even if we didn't sign this dude, we were out on Michael Parsons in the second round linebacker. Um, but I think this is more of a kid who's been in, like you said, special teamers, but been in the league for a few years, but he's not old. Um, who actually coached under Gannon, played under Gannon, uh, understands his scheme and understands his concepts and stuff like that. I don't think he was a backup because he was bad. I think it's because Anthony Barr is a all pro
Right,
linebacker. You
right.
get what I'm saying? He's one of the top, he probably top 5 linebacker in the NFL right now. Right now. So
Ooh, I wouldn't go
playing
that
behind,
far, but I get what you're
no,
saying.
no, top 10 linebacker. Sorry.
Yeah.
So playing behind him, it's kind of hard to get playing time. So I
Sure,
think
sure.
You know what I mean? I think, and then when he got his opportunity,
He
he
balled
showed what
out.
he could do. Yeah, yeah. And the reason why they didn't resign him is because Anthony Barr is coming back. So
Let's hope this is kind of like a Connor Barwin signing. Like Barwin, he did okay in Houston and he was beloved there, and then
perfect
came here and lit
analogy.
it up.
He was just behind wasn't JJ at the time. Him,
Yeah,
Mario Williams.
Mary.
Mario Williams. And that's why he couldn't get on because it was almost like, yo, we a top five pick on this dude, and that's how we were able to. But that is a perfect analogy. He was playing
So
behind somebody that was, you know what I mean?
there's one more thing that I want to bring up, and it's about Howie Roseman and the growing thing, and not just by one or two people. So I'm not going by the people that defend Howie no matter what, but both national, local, and the fan base. There's been a swell of people who are saying Howie has had a very, very good offseason so far. So I'll ask you, A, do you feel Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles have had a really good offseason? And B, if you had to give it a letter grade, very hard because I feel like if you give them a letter grade, it's cool, but the final exam is this draft, and that's like 65% of your grade. But
Right, right,
you
right,
know,
right.
excluding that, so what would the letter grade be for Howie and the Eagles?
Current, currently, right. So I wouldn't say a really good offseason. I would say a decent offseason. Not the big splash, but it seems like they learned their lessons from making these big splashes. Because it's not just about signings, it's getting out of some of those contracts. Got out of the bad contracts with Deshaun and Alshon. Got you know what I'm saying? Got out of actually kind of depends on how you but some type of resolution to the Carson Wentz thing. You know what I mean? Situation got out of that. I would give it a C plus, but the
That
type
was
of
the same
C
grade I was
plus,
going to give them. So go ahead.
but a type of C plus that's a 79.
Yeah, see, I was going to say
You
it's
know what
funny
I'm
because I
saying?
had a number. I was going to say 78, like C
Okay.
plus, because here's the thing. To me, if he ends up, and we're going to speak on what I'm about to say and how much of a possibility it is.
Hmm.
If he ends up going with the guy that you wanted all along, Patrick Surtain, in the draft, and then
I might cry.
and then in the second round ends up getting a wide receiver such as I keep on forgetting his name, Terrence from LSU,
Terrence Marshall.
Terrence Marshall, or if Bateman from Minnesota somehow falls to that place, and you got that first round pick for next year too. You know, like to me, that bumps you up to an A minus because you got who you
I
wanted.
mean, I mean, yeah, yeah. I'm on the fence with that because I agree with you. If Patrick Surtain is there at
If we
12
get
and we
Surtain
draft him,
and Terrence Marshall, AB, yeah,
bro,
yeah, I got to give him a
that's
gold star.
yeah. That's an A. That's that you've made the honor roll type stamp. You know what I'm saying? You honor roll student at that point. You know what I
The
mean?
semester didn't start
Um,
well, but you pulled it out.
they go Greg Rousseau and then an offensive tackle or guard, offensive lineman in the second round. That C plus is going to go to a F, and I mean the F from the F type of that from the damn Christmas story. F all around the classroom.
I said this. My biggest concern is that we end up getting a tweener like the defensive end from Michigan.
Yeah,
Here,
and that's what I was thinking. Yeah, the
yeah.
defensive definition. That's what I was more thinking.
Here's the interesting thing. So, hot story that's been coming out. Who's the team that has had an issue with defense for the past couple of years?
Dallas Cowboys.
Who's the team that we thought they had to go defense last year until CD Lamb fell into the lap?
Dallas Cowboys.
Who's the team that now is talking about they're so in love, and by team I mean Jerry Jones because he's the only one that matters, with Pitts that he's willing to trade up to try to get him.
Here's the thing, and I know that we tease Cowboys fans about Jerry Jones and everything. But ever since, and I can't remember what year, but ever since the Johnny Manziel draft, there has been somebody that has been able to pull the reins on Jerry, and that has been his son, Steven.
Yes.
And that's what scares me. Like when Jerry is no longer mentally able to do these things, you know what I'm saying, age-wise, and Steven Jones takes over, that's going to be scary. But with that being said, I would not be, that would not surprise me, man. Like you just signed Dak to this big contract.
Dude,
Like I said, it would not surprise me if they did that. It wouldn't really
listen,
would.
let me tell you something. And Kyle Pitts is great. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Please let Kyle Pitts fall to 8 and let the Cowboys give up 2 twos or to trade 2 spots to Carolina to draft Kyle Pitts because it falls right into the strategy that you said. Everybody else is going offense. So we get to go defense. I understand that they always want to look back and Andy built up the O line and the D line, and that's how and that's important. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But with the way that the game is right now, with the short passing and all that, dude, if you don't have 2 solid corners, you can't win. And I just don't want to see them
My
draft.
dear younger brother, you are starting to see the lights.
And don't get me wrong. Here's my thing, and don't get me wrong. I still think we need a number 1 receiver. I still think we need a dynamic receiver. But and I really thought about this, who's probably the guy on our offense beyond Hurts that would be most dynamic, we could probably use the most, and could have the biggest impact on the game and be most explosive?
Miles Sanders.
So if you're going to build around Sanders, you don't necessarily need a stud wide receiver when you have all these other holes.
And the thing is that here's the thing. Yes, I am a firm believer you build within the trenches. Okay, the game is won within the trenches. Okay, um, these people who we need offensive line, we need offensive line, and I've been saying this since the middle of the season, since people start going down. Yo, we don't need offensive line. We don't. We honestly do not. But some of these defensive linemen are getting older. But we have we got 2/3, now 4th. You could get in this draft, you could get a defensive lineman in the 3rd round. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But speaking of rumors and the things that I've heard, I have heard almost how like the Cowboys are really leaning on Pitts now and really wanting Pitts is the Eagles, speaking of Terrence Marshall, have actually called and talked to him numerous occasions. Like I think they said the Eagles have talked to Terrence Marshall more than any team in the league since his pro day. So if Terrence
Probably
Marshall's
asking
there,
if they screwed up by passing on Chase.
but no, if I definitely think, man. I mean, because I'm not saying he's going to be Chase, but like you said, if you don't need a number 1 top flight receiver. You need 3 or 4 good solid ones. The football gods have opened up the lights and have shined down on my younger brother here and has helped him see the light. And all we're saying to you is we're not as bad as people think we are.
With all that, we'll end up with Waddle.
And you know
Listen,
what? I still wouldn't be too mad. And if we end up with Waddle and then get Asante Samuel Jr. At 37, I wouldn't be mad.
NFL drafts in 2 weeks. Just a reminder, we will be doing a live stream of the first round. Depending on how the first round goes and how we're feeling, we might, live stream maybe the second round. Probably not second and third, but it all depends.
You may
if
have
they
to
draft some BS
because I work 12-hour shifts. I'll be at work. Unless I could try to live stream in the afternoon from my yard horse. Hey.
No, I thought that they were doing a thing where the first round was on Thursday and then the second round was going to be on Friday, like Friday night.
I think it is, but it starts a little earlier, right? Than the first. The first round starts like 8.
Yeah, it's a little weird this year. Let's jump into our 5-pack of questions.
All right.
Try to have a little fun. I'm actually going to start with something. As I mentioned, the building that catty cornered the Spectrum was the Vet. We talked about the anniversary of the Vet being exploded. But we also celebrated the anniversary this past week of the vet opening. So I wanted to ask you, what's your first memory of Veterans Stadium as far as being there, like your first event?
Honestly, the first thing I actually remember about being at Veterans Stadium was going with Grandmom and Aunt Alvine to a Jehovah's Witness. They used to once a year they used to have like this big Jehovah Witness gathering there, man. And uh, and that's one thing. And why I remember this, I do not know, but I specifically remember like grandma putting a blanket down, kind of like in a breezeway or whatever. And I guess we were by the locker room and we were just kind of sitting there. I guess we were having lunch or whatever during the intermission. And I remember a bunch of Eagles players walking by. I can't tell you who they were. All there's blurred in the faces, but I remember them walking by, guys in the long like that, whatever cheap cloth green jacket that the coaches wore back then. But I do remember that. So I mean, if anybody asks me who were they, what I can't tell you, but I do remember giant men. But that is my first memory of the vet, man, was actually going to, and then after that was going to like Phillies games with mom and stuff like that as I got older and things like
I
that.
wasn't expecting that answer at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
but you said my first memories. My first
right,
memory.
right, absolutely, and that's what makes it fun because we talked about kind
Yeah,
of your favorite memories or your best memory.
right.
Yeah, like my very first memory of the vet, and I don't think it was the first time I was there, but the first thing I remember is going to a game in April of '93 for
Okay.
the Phillies, which that's when they won the pennant, lost to Joe Carter. But here's the crazy thing: I went to that game because at the time, Simpsons was the big show. The Simpsons had this big baseball episode the year prior, and they were playing the Dodgers, and I was a big fan of Darryl Strawberry. And also, I used to watch, like, we didn't have cable, but I used to watch sports shows all the time. Early 90s baseball was like king still nationally. And they used to have all these type of baseball shows during rain delays and all that. So they talked a lot about this rookie who wasn't expected to do nothing, was now starting for the Dodgers, that was local, named Mike Piazza.
Right.
And I'll never forget our cousin Sandy had a friend who, after the Phillies just win. I think they won like 8-2, something like that. He was just like, see, this is why you come to see the home team. And if you like Piazza, check out this Darren Dalton guy. And kind of, but it was my first experience of actually having love for the Phillies. And I lucked out because it was one of those April games at night where it was actually really warm.
Oh,
You
okay.
don't get. So unfortunately, we have to talk about the passing of DMX.
Yes. Well, since you put in the 5 pack of questions, I'll do what I was going to say now. I was going to end the show with something, but yeah, okay, I'll do it now.
Okay. Well, go ahead, because my question doesn't
Oh, no,
have
no,
to
go ahead
do.
with your question. I don't know what the question was.
Well, the question isn't necessarily going to do with DMX, but we never know when great performers are going to leave us. Name a performer that you want to see live, like the number one performer that you have to see live that you haven't seen before.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
don't want
still
to
alive right
be
now?
dark and say you have to see them before they die. Like that, I feel that's kind of dark.
I get what you're saying. I would like to see live. And they have to be alive now,
Yes, so they're alive now,
and
and
I've never seen before.
yeah.
Mm, you know who I want to see live? And the only reason I'm picking this group is because I'm actually going to, been waiting for a year now. It's got rescheduled to this summer. It's like a super show with some old 80s rock bands. But I want to see so seeing a lot of the hip hop from my generation in concert. So I would like to see Metallica in concert. I've never been to a Metallica concert.
That's a good one.
Metallica.
Believe it or not, you know who I want to see live? It sounds so weird, but part of it is because our mother used to love him so much growing up. But I would love to see Billy Joel live.
Oh yeah, that'd
You
be
know,
cool.
I've been lucky enough. I actually went to that Live 8 concert where they had all the performers in '04, I believe it was.
Right,
So I got a chance to see Stevie Wonder, and I got a chance to see Def Leppard, and there was a lot of like people there that were just doing one or two performances. But
right.
it was dope. But never got a chance to see Billy Joel. I did luck out. I actually saw Prince in concert 2 years before he passed as well. The Eagles got 9 road games this year.
Okay.
If you could pick one road game that you'd want to go to, which one would you go to this year?
Well, uh, this is terrible, terrible, terrible as an Eagles fan. I don't even know outside the division which ones are the road games. I really didn't look.
So I'll name a few. So
Okay,
obviously we
outside the
have
division.
yeah. So obviously we have New York because the Jets. Okay. So we have Vegas, we have Carolina, um, and we have Denver.
Stop you right there. If I had a choice, because normally I would say almost 10 times out of 10, if I was going to a road trip, you would be with me. So I would try to knock out two birds with one stone. It may not be Billy Joel. So we would go to Vegas, but not for what you guys think, but because there is a bar there that these two guys, and it's I don't know the name of the bar, but I knew dude they do the dueling pianos and they battle each other playing Billy Joel music. So it's kind of
That's cool.
so so yeah, so that's what we would do.
And you know what? I mean, I've never been to Vegas, so it would be Vegas. But a very close second is I think I would like to check out, the old Mile High.
Yeah, and that would be option two. It'd be the Mile
Yeah.
High.
Question number 4. Um, there are still actually quite a lot of NFL free agents that are available that are relatively big names. If the Eagles could sign one remaining NFL free agent, who would you want them to sign? And I have a bunch of names if you want me to read off some names.
There's only one really big free agent I would actually want to is KJ Wright.
I feel the same way. To me, KJ Wright or Steven Nelson, the cornerback.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But it's Steven Nelson's okay, but you get KJ Wright with this other kid and Singleton. You have a decent linebacking core behind that decent off defensive line. And if you draft JC Horn, bro, yo,
I,
it almost puts you a year ahead of where you are with your rebuild. Just
I
that
would
one
say
signing.
I would say one more thing. If we were able to still get J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain and then get this guy, I would want him just for the type of attitude he would just inject into the defense. I know I don't think you're as high on him as I am. I just, like I said, I don't think we might have lost a step. So I'm not talking about he'd be a lockdown corner. I think Richard Sherman would do some good for the young guys and just getting them to get some sort of killer instinct. Because I feel that the young guys here got so used to the sticks defense and well, if they need 15 yards, just as long as they can get 14. Like, no, like get them.
Yeah, yeah. You got them in the 3rd and 20. Like put them in 4th and 25 at this point.
Right, right. And that's the
That's what,
mindset of Sherman.
yes, yes.
And my final question for you, as we all know, and if you don't, you know, uh, your son that is in high school is a monster, plays football. That's his
Mhm.
focus. Your daughter, that is your youngest, does not play any
Mhm.
sports.
Mhm.
But if she was to play a sport, and she
Mhm.
said, Daddy, I want to play sports. What sport should I get into? What sport would you lead your daughter into?
So there is no, she says there's only one sport she actually enjoys playing in gym, and that's actually floor hockey. So I would, if it was because there's no floor hockey school, I'll probably lead her towards field hockey if there was.
Yeah, I was about to say there are some really good college scholarships for women's field hockey.
Hmm.
If somehow she learned how to skate, that Olympic women's hockey team is no joke. Like they're up there as far as competitive in their nature, like the women's hockey team. They are
Hmm.
just incredible.
But she's gonna be my politician.
I will say this before we end the show here. You said that you wanted to end something or say something with the
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
DMX.
Listen, we lost DMX, and uh I was DMX was one of the five major. Like you had other hip hop artists, Dre, you had Snoop and everything, but he's one of the five major in my life between that 18 and 25 demographic where your life is really you could go two different paths. And fortunately, I started to go down one path and kind of right before I was getting ready to go off the cliff, I kind of veered and was able to right the ship. But he was one of the five, and it's crazy. And you sit back, and you don't realize it while they're here because you don't think about the insane. And when he lost, one of the first things I thought about, and I posted this on my social media, was like, you don't hear people talk about DMX as one of the goats of hip hop. You get what I'm saying? You always hear the Nas, the Jay-Z's, the Snoop.
And they are now, which is such a shame.
DMX was the hip hop version of Nirvana. Okay. And what I mean by that is you had the 80s glam music, right? You had the long hair, the metal, you know what I'm saying, the hair bands and stuff, and the Poisons and the Bon Jovis and all these groups and the Motley Crues. And then here comes Nirvana. Bang, grungy, grimy. You understand what I'm saying? Their video. And you had that. It started to get away from it went from grimy and gritty and hip hop to political to almost like Biggie was a little grimy when he first came out, but then he started getting a little flashy, Coogee, and this, and everybody's talking about it. Then when he passed, Puff and even Jay-Z and Mace, they went Rockettes with it, with the shiny suits and all this other shit. And here comes DMX, just like Nirvana did the rock. Bang, gritty, grimy, and Get At Me Dog was our version of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like that song, like changed. It made it cool to be that dude in a wife beater and baggy jeans. You get what I'm saying? Like his impact was just phenomenal, man. And the simple fact that I was blessed to have seen him in concert 3 different times, and it's a shame and how he passed. And as a fan, when I saw him come out earlier this year with the Locks in the song on the Locks new LP, about shit. And he didn't look like the chiseled, muscled up DMX. He had the gray beard, but he had the belly. You get what I'm saying? And he looked healthy.
He looked healthy, yes.
Yes, he looked healthy. He was doing interviews, and I was just like, man, I was so happy to see somebody that went through the things that I know the DMX story. So like to go through that, and he came out on top, and it looked like he was really he's working on album. He just finished the album. He was getting ready to do some movies and stuff. He just came out with his own cologne. He was really starting to do it, and man, and sometimes those demons kick in, man, and it's really sad that he's not here.
He wasn't trying to pop Cristal on a speedboat. No,
Yes.
He was trying to hang out with some pit bulls. He was trying to sit there and have his boys with him, both in his videos. And literally, I mean, he took Swiss Beats, who was a kid, he was a teenager that he saw a lot of talent in, brought him along. He brought all the people together to make the Rough Riders. And on top of that,
you know what he was? You know what he was? He was fucking hip hop.
Right. And yet,
that's what
at the same time, he wasn't a one-note person. To me, my favorite song from DMX was Slippin'. Just because of the idea of, with all the party stuff that was going and all the rah-rah stuff that he had, and borderline fight music, so to speak, he drops a song like Slippin', where anyone who has experienced being somewhere where it's just like, man, I'm slipping, I'm falling, but I gotta get up. And not just gotta get up, as he put it, I gotta tear shit up. So I just don't have to survive. No, I gotta thrive.
In a time where it not only wasn't a hype music, but a time where it was not cool for men to show their soft side as far as their weakness, and to basically, he put his heart on his sleeve in that song.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he really exposed himself to the world, and the courage for him to be able to do that in that time of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I know nowadays it's okay to express your feelings, but back then that was man to man.
Yeah, man. Just rest in power, good brother. And
there it is right there.
Yeah, that was his thing before Des Bryant was doing it. So just
absolutely.
But all right, man. Listen, that's our show. We'll use this if you get an opportunity. Once again, let's get it nicer and all that. Go out and do some stuff that maybe you've been putting off, because we just never know when they're gonna call your name. Hey, listen, first off, it's always a good time to play some wiffle ball. We'll get into that story about, I don't know if they're there anymore, but how you made some bases at a schoolyard and they were there 25 years later.
Right, right.
That would be next week. But take it
That
easy,
would take
y'all.
one of us around to go to Feltonville. And remember, RIP, baby.
Peace, y'all.